All right, you guys, if it looks and sounds like I'm recording in a bathroom right now, it's because I am. And so if you guys want to know why, and actually if you listen real close, you can hear Pumpkin trying to beat the door down right now. Hang on. Pumpkin. Oh, he just stopped. Okay, anyways. Yes, I am in a bathroom. The reason is because this door behind me actually leads to what is and was and really still is my master closet, which I have turned into a recording studio for audiobooks. So if you guys want to come in and take a look, you're gonna notice a big difference between the level of echo that is in here and the level of echo that is in the next room over. So let's go ahead and take a look inside. I'll show you guys what I have built. All right. Dun, 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 dun. Ho, ho, ho. Yes, this is where I spend all my time now. All right, so this is my recording studio. All right, so what this is basically I took my master closet and turned it into my recording studio, which you guys already know. What I did is I hung curtains around literally every wall. The reason for this is actually twofold. The first one is that if you guys listen to my normal videos in my where I typically record them, you'll notice there is tons and tons of traffic noise of just like cars driving by, and you know, we really can't have that on the audiobooks. You guys can put up with it for the YouTube videos, but for audiobooks I had to come to, this is actually the back of the house. This is like the most insulated room that I have, and actually I still do every once in a while have to stop recording because a big truck will come by. We live on a hill and they have to bomb it up the hill and it is so loud. So I do every once in a while have to stop recording. Most of the time I actually don't. I am so into what I'm reading though, I don't realize that I'm supposed to, and so I just don't. And so then I have traffic noises in my audio, and I sometimes can clean it up and sometimes I just have to re-record it. But let me tell you guys a little bit about the setup. So this over here is my microphone setup. So this is it's called a Neumann TLM 102, if I remember right. It's actually been a little while since I bought all of this. This is a pop filter that makes it so that when you say anything with like the letter P in it, the breath from your mouth doesn't get through it and screw up the microphone. So that's what this is for. This is called a boom arm, and I'm already forgetting all my terminology, but whatever this is called, I've forgotten, but it's important because all of these like threads that are around the microphone, if you can see all of those, it's actually suspended in the middle there. So basically, if I'm dinking around on the desk and making vibrations and they come up through this boom arm, they don't actually end up making it to the microphone and screwing it up. One of the other things that I have, this is my Focusrite, which you can see it's picking up everything I'm saying right now. So basically this turns the audio from the official microphone into something that is compatible with the computer. And then this is my program. It's called Adobe Audition. So, you know, I feel like if you're gonna learn to do something, you might as well learn to do it on the best software so that you don't have to relearn it later when you decide to upgrade. This light is actually typically not on. This is just so that I could give you guys kind of a cool recording experience. This is my Kindle. This is what I read off of. These are my headphones. They plug in, actually they had to go through like an adapter to plug into the Focusrite, but they actually work really well now. So every time I speak, the sound goes into the main microphone, down the cord, through the Focusrite, into the computer, and then I'm able to monitor and hear it actually through this set of headphones. And then I record everything at once and basically record it onto here, and then I will edit it the next day and see if there's anything that I need to re-record. Let's see. Let me tell you guys about some of the terrible mistakes that I have made in the process of putting together this home recording studio. So I actually really love these curtains. The reason that I got them is because they are supposed to be somewhat sound blocking, because there's two things you need to do. You need to block outside sounds from getting through, which means you need kind of like a heavy material for that, but you also want to absorb the vibrations of your own voice so they're not bouncing all over the place and making it sound like you are in a cave with an echo, which if you'll remember when we were in the bathroom, it sounded like that, but in here it doesn't, and that is partially because of these curtains, and also partially because this is actually still a closet, and so behind these curtains is, you know, rows of clothing on both sides. But one of the things that I did wrong, that I'll just let you guys know in case you ever decide to make your own home recording studio, is you'll see up here all of these, here, hang on. I found these really cheap hooks that I could attach to the walls, and then, you know, I could hang all of these curtains up on them. But when I was reading the reviews, it said that they will peel the paint off. And so I was like, oh, let me outsmart these hooks, and I'll just buy a ton of command strips, which, you know, those you stick on the wall and then you can peel them back off and they don't hurt the paint or anything. And so I affixed command hook strips to the walls, because I found like a really big bag of those for super cheap. And then I used the cheap hooks and connected them to the command strips. Anyways, basically, I thought I was being super smart and beating the system by doing it that way. But what actually happened is if you place command strips on your wall and attach them to something sticky, they cease to work the way that they're supposed to, and they will rip your paint off as well, which you can see happened up here when I had to move 3 of the hooks over. So basically, every single one of these is gonna rip a hole in my paint when I do eventually take them down. So I think I just can never move. Basically, I will be living in this house forever. So, okay, cool. That was not mistake number 1. I mean, none of them have been terribly big. Mistake number 2 was this. If you look over here, this is where I planned to put my Kindle for when I was reading. And then I realized that every time I turned the page, it would do this. Maybe not quite as exaggerated, but look at it's like still wobbling a little bit, and it makes noise when it wobbles. So even just the tiniest little prodding when I'd go to turn the page, that was a hilarious mistake. So I just hold my Kindle and read it now. I do not keep it in the stand. I thought that was going to be a really good idea, and it wasn't. The last thing that I think I did wrong is that I had my microphone just on the wrong settings when I very first started, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos on which microphone to get and how to hook it up and how to get everything working properly. But you know what? Everybody has different voices, and so you really have to tailor a lot of what you're doing to your specific voice. And mine is, I think, a little more high-pitched than the average person who is recording audiobooks. So basically what happened is I recorded the first 5 chapters of Secrets of the Halie, and when I was going back and listening to them, there was just something abrasive that I wasn't liking, and I thought I could get it out when I was editing, and I couldn't get it out. And finally, it turned out I ended up going back and really reworking the settings on the microphone and on the Focusrite over here, just so that it wasn't picking up the tinny parts of my voice that I didn't want in there because they were just so over-exaggerated. It just wasn't working. So basically, long story short, is that I do need to re-record the first 5 chapters of Secrets of the Halie, and so I thought I would just invite you guys to come join me in my studio as I do so, and you can hear me do a little bit of reading, kind of see what the process looks like. Basically, nobody reads without screwing up, so if I flub a couple of words, I just stop for a quick second, if even that, and I just say them again, and then when I'm editing, I will catch them then and re-record them. So, here, I'll show you. This is Adobe Audition. This is this is the software that I use. And then let's see, Control-Shift-N makes a new chapter. We're gonna call this Prologue. All right, so you see we have a blank canvas there, and then I'm just gonna go ahead and start recording. And you know, by no means would I call this the best lighting in the world, but you know, we work with what we got. And yeah, let's go ahead and record this. You guys will probably see when I hear the car noises, I a lot of times don't even notice them. I don't even stop. So I also have realized, You know, a lot of people have different advice about how best to do this. I've realized that when I'm speaking straight into the microphone, I think I project my voice too much, or I just have it on the wrong settings. I don't really know, but it doesn't work if I talk bleh like this, like people recommend you do. So you guys will kind of see I actually read more straight on. I'm gonna go ahead and get started here. Okay, headphones in. Well, let me figure out how to get back to the very beginning. Here is my cover, Secrets of the Tally, but it's a paperwhite, so it's all in black and white, which is fine. Secrets of the Tally by Halie Fuchs. There's my map. Prologue. Okay, here we go. Prologue. Sometimes, when the sky was cloudless and the birds sang loudly enough, Margaret forgot that strolling wasn't allowed. A light breeze and a warm day were almost enough to make the forest seem harmless, and so she followed behind the 2 kids in her care without any sense of urgency. 11 seemed a little young to her, but the kids had been best friends for years. She'd known this was coming. All was peaceful until a shrieking scream echoed from ahead and froze all 3 of them to the trail. Margaret quickly hissed, "Back to town! Now!" This was her worst nightmare, made even worse as her son took off toward the danger. His best friend Ebby darted after him, and Margaret was the only one left rooted to the ground in shock. This couldn't be happening. If there was an Ascali ahead, it would rip them apart. "Rachuan, no, come back!" she cried, forcing her limbs to pursue, suddenly sprinting as only a panicked mother could. A blonde teenage girl sobbed and coughed in a patch of wildflowers ahead, writhing on the ground as she struggled to say something. The kids reached her first, and Ebby was on her knees in an instant, trying to figure out what was wrong when there was no blood. Margaret skidded to a stop behind them, hauling each of the kids back to their feet. "Out of here, now!" "But I think she's a mage," Ebby protested. "We have to help her." Margaret used all the strength in her arms to yank both kids back in the direction of safety. "Run now, and we'll send her help from town." Margaret's forceful push suddenly became a restraint to pull them back to her, as an Ascali dropped down from a tree limb. A human-like monster with wickedly black hair on his head and spikes of bone jutting from his elbows, now crouched with his sharp teeth bared. The kids pressed themselves against Margaret from either side. It would only take the Ascali seconds to kill all 3 of them. All right, so we have to break it. That was the end of the prologue, and we have to break it before the next chapter, so I've got to create a new one real quick. Chapter 1. Also, I don't actually think my headphones are working. Oh, I'm such a professional. You know, it's funny. When you guys see the finished product, it's like, wow, this is so put together, but it's kind of funnier when you get to see the process. Huh, it says my headphones are working. I think that's a lie, though. Hello? Oh, they are actually. Huh, I think they're just not turned up far enough. That's what it is. That's what it is. All right, Chapter 1. Somebody had ripped my mind open and poured black ink inside. It was an all-consuming darkness, and when I woke, I brought nothing with me except a sense of confused terror. My legs were already working frantically beneath me, crashing through forest undergrowth for reasons unknown. I lurched involuntarily to one side and grabbed an ancient tree to steady myself, clinging to the damp moss with all the strength in my fingers as my knees threatened to collapse. My eyes stung and my head ached, so I smashed my face into the soft green life, and with the cool scent of rotting wood filling my nose and calming me down, I tried to think. Something was wrong. Everything was wrong. I didn't know where I was. I didn't know what was happening. I didn't know if I was alone. 2 birds began to chatter to each other overhead, and I snapped my eyes open as blood's earthy scent hit me, a smell like steel and broken stones. My blurry vision sharpened as I pushed myself back from the thunderstruck tree, and I realized my hands had left crimson stains on the moss. Panicked, I whipped around to see an aging forest I'd never laid eyes on before. A tangle of clovers and wild strawberry vines snagged my ankles as I spun, and I wrung my hands fiercely together in the nearest leafy bush to scrub the blood off. Each breath became a shorter gasp as reality hit me, and my weary lungs tried to match the accelerating pace of my heart. I didn't know where I was from. I didn't even know my own name. Air scraped through my throat, and I clutched a shaky hand to my neck as I spun around again, trying to find signs of danger among the ferns and wildflowers. Although I couldn't spot anything frightening in the dappled sunlight, I heard the shriek of a little girl in the distance and footsteps running toward me. My stomach twisted sharply, and an overwhelming wave of frustration made me want to cry. I didn't know if friends or foes approached. I might be running from my saviors or waiting for my murderers if I chose wrong. But even if they were coming to help, I couldn't explain why I had blood drying in the creases of my hands. I wasn't sure I'd ever even seen these hands before, and I couldn't answer any questions. So, in sheer panic, I bolted. I didn't know what had happened, and I had no idea where I was going, but I tore through a blur of the deep green forest, trampling wildflowers and soft soil as my feet reveled in the discovery of running. My muscles seemed designed for this, propelling me forward with incredible speed, hurdling every mossy obstacle in my way. The terror that drove me also reconnected something in my thoughts, and the last few minutes of my memory flooded back in a confusing jumble. I remembered writhing in a patch of white ground flowers, unable to project more than one shriek in agony. 2 kids running straight to me to help, a boy with acorn-colored hair, not yet dyed crimson in his blood, and a smaller girl with a cascade of blonde. A woman, maybe their mother, had sprinted close behind, hissing for them to leave me. Something was coming. I remembered intense pain ripping through my entire body, preventing me from so much as getting to my knees. Even now, I could still feel my stomach churning, protesting the abuse as a makeshift marketplace came into view. My feet must have had a memory separate from my mind to carry me here, and my panic brought me to an immobilized stop right on the edge of what seemed to be a small village. A stranger brushed past me, and one almost bumped into me, but I couldn't recognize one face in the crowd of browsing locals. Kids chased each other around carts filled with jewelry, clothes, instruments, and toys, but fear built in my chest the longer I stood still. I needed answers. I needed to feel safe and figure out who I was and what was going on. "Halie, you came back!" a man in a small hat exclaimed, sharing an aged smile that reached all the way to his large ears. He stood beneath a tent where a band of friends made a show of cooking breads and meats, juggling wads of dough and tossing pans to each other as they prepared food for a ring of onlookers. I forced myself to rasp, "How do you know me?" wondering if I had just swallowed an entire briar patch. How else could speaking hurt so much? His smile waned as he saw my anxious confusion, and I noticed a few cooks setting down their work to glance over as well. The short, wrinkled man in the hat said, "You were just here buying a roasted squirrel from us. I never forget a name. You said it was Halie." Another of the cooks, a sun-tanned girl with tightly curled hair, abandoned her position to ask, "Are you all right? Do you need help?" I replied, I just... Yes. I flung an arm over my mouth to muffle a hacking cough, a horrible bitter taste coming up with it. Shouting drew the crowd's attention as a man with a bow arrived at the village's edge. "There's been an attack in the woods," he told the marketplace. "Margaret is dead, and her son badly hurt. We spotted a girl running from the scene, straight toward town, tall, with long blonde hair." That was me, and my face betrayed my terror as I scanned for the best route of escape. The curly-haired girl grabbed my arm, boring her large eyes into mine. "Do you need somewhere to hide?" she asked. As soon as I nodded, she pulled me beneath their baking tent with surprising strength to hide me under a cloth-covered table. Completely concealed, I immediately pressed my face into the dusty grass and peered out to make sure nobody was pointing in my direction. I wasn't about to put total faith into the group of strangers, not when I still had 2 legs and the ability to breathe. The girl jumped into the air to catch a flying pan of food, and she emptied its contents onto a plate, still laughing easily as though nothing was amiss. Maybe she could be trusted after all. My entire body took advantage of the temporary safety and settled into the dirt. I was about to breathe a sigh of relief when my entire situation crashed down like old-growth timber in a storm. Branches of terror drove straight through me while 1,000 suffocating leaves bore pressure on my ability to think. How could I not know where I was? How could I not know who I was? My heart hammered faster with the fear of uncertainty, and I tried to calm it. "Don't cry, don't cry, don't cry." I squeezed my eyes shut so no tears could escape. But how had I even gotten here? I racked my brain, looking for any tiny bit of information in the emptiness, but there was nothing to find that hadn't happened in the past hour. I curled my knees up to my chest and focused on my breathing. I only knew two things. My name was Halie, and something horrible had just taken place. I grabbed the blonde tangle that reached to my waist and pulled it out of the dust so I could tug my fingers anxiously through the knots. Toying with it helped me feel real and kept me calm as I tried to at least piece the vicious attack back together. The memory was dreamlike. Small details trickled through, but never the entire picture. The mother yanking the kids to their feet, telling them to leave me, to run back to town. Me trying to agree with her as I choked and squirmed. Run! Leave me! The panic in their faces as something terrifying stepped into sight. I snapped my eyes open and focused on the stuffy warm air around me, pushing the image of the predator as far from my thoughts as I could. I twirled my fingers through the hair I had managed to detangle and used my other hand to poke at the rest of myself. Hard, lean muscles all over, a few calluses on my palms. I wore soft leathers, probably to allow for ease of movement. Tight sandals wrapped the bottoms of my feet with leather soles, and the laces crisscrossed up my calves, built for running. Had I been running all my life? Probably, and I'd have to keep running if that thing in the woods ever appeared again. That human-like creature with cloudy eyes and bared teeth, grinning wickedly at the sight of a woman, 2 children, and me. I shivered as I remembered the spikes of bone jutting from his elbows, jagged spines that could easily impale and kill somebody standing behind him. He had snapped his attention between the 3 standing over me, with movements that were eerily jerky, like an insect. I shook my head, trying not to relive the moment when he slammed the little boy into the dirt. I tried to block the memory of a second monster ripping the woman's throat out, with his teeth. And that little girl, screaming as they'd taken her. The cloth of the table rustled, startling me. Sunshine beamed inside, and I bolted upright as a small boy ducked into my fortress from the other side. "Can I hide with you?" he asked, his eyes bright from the thrill of whatever game he was playing. His gleeful smile didn't sit well with me as I tried to overcome my crisis. "No," I replied, wondering vaguely what he'd done to cake so much mud into his hair and onto his face. The little boy looked like the lone survivor of a great battle, and like he'd rolled in the aftermath. I expected him to leave after my unwelcoming reply, but he settled onto his heels instead, frowning now. "Are you even playing?" he asked. I sank my palms into my eyes in disbelief. "No." "Well, what's wrong?" he asked, folding his legs across each other to make himself comfortable. "I don't recognize you. Are you one of the travelers coming through today?" I let out a short laugh at the absurdity of his interest, but he wasn't about to leave. "I wish I knew," I told him, "but something's wrong with me." "Well," he pushed, "what's wrong?" I don't know what possessed me to tell this kid anything. Perhaps because of his large, inquisitive eyes, or my desperate need to simply talk to someone, I found myself explaining, "I just sort of woke up out in the woods without any idea who I am, and I don't know where I'm from, I don't know what happened, and I don't know what to do." Getting those words off my chest gave me room to finally take a deep breath, but I felt strangely uneasy. It wasn't this kid's age that bothered me. It was the fact that I had just opened up to him. I was putting my trust in someone I didn't know, and everything about that felt wrong, like I was breaking a sacred value. The boy nodded, giving me more attention than I thought possible for his age. "Well, why are you hiding?" "Because something bad happened in the forest, and I think I might be blamed for it." His eyes grew wider, and he exclaimed, "You're the girl the mages came looking for!" Oh, wonderful. Now I had to figure out how to keep him from revealing me. "Tell me about these mages," I said, hoping to keep him talking while I figured out what to do, apart from tackling him. The boy was entirely too happy to know something I didn't, and said, "Those are 2 of the mages who keep Tabriel Vale safe from monsters. I don't know their names, but one of them has the power to use fire, and the other is an ice mage." I knew mages could only have one power, so if these 2 wielded fire and ice, they wouldn't have any magical ability to track me down. I knew that like I knew a rock would fall if I dropped it. It was just the way things were. "Are there other mages around... what did you call this place?" The boy scrunched his eyebrows, confused. "There are mages everywhere with the eclipsival tomorrow, and this is Tabriel Vale. Don't you..." He gasped as understanding finally reached his eyes. "You've really forgotten everything." Just about, I said, not loving to admit it. But I think there's a difference between knowledge and memory. I've only forgotten names and events, faces and places, you know? But I suspected I hadn't entirely forgotten them. In the midst of confusion and terror, my feet had brought me to Tabriel Vale, my best bet of finding safety and answers. My survival instincts had simply kicked in to save me, and that thought was intriguing. I wondered if that was all I needed to jog my memory, a little life-threatening danger. The noise from the market began to trickle into me, and I heard the old man beneath the tent call, "One baking show special, sweet sauce and sliced roast." And the whole crew answered back, "All grilled to perfection, then served on wheat toast." Every order had a prearranged call and a specific response, but I focused on the conversations outside to see if I was likely to escape the town unnoticed. Most discussed money or longed for the items on display, but I also heard several kids talking. A little girl said, "We haven't found Leaf yet," and a boy answered, "Good, let's just leave him." I glanced at the mud monster beside me and said, "I'm told my name is Halie. What's yours?" "Leaf," he replied, smiling as though the name itself made him happy. I felt an immediate irritation with the kids outside for leaving him out of their fun. "What else do you know about yourself?" Leaf asked. "Nothing, really." "Did you find anything when you searched your pockets?" Pockets? Why hadn't they crossed my mind yet? I plunged my hands into the small pockets on each pant leg. One came up empty, the other closed around a folded scrap of paper, worth more to me than gold. I jerked each fold apart in haste, ready to find incredible knowledge between the creases. As I undid the last doubling in the paper, the dim light only illuminated a few sloppy and disappointing lines. Leaf got anxiously to his knees and exclaimed, "I'm too little to read! What does it say?" It says, "Halie, I'm volunteering for the Eclipsival setup today with West, and I probably won't be back to the Dragana till it's dark. Your sister, Liz." I set the paper down and said, "Well, at least I know I have a sister, one who has clearly never held a pen before." "And you're from the Dragana!" Leaf exclaimed. "That's where they train kids to become mages. They just recruited me too. And if you live at the Dragana, you must have a power, or you will someday. Do you know what yours is?" "I barely know my name," I replied, "so no." I fixed my gaze on the note in my hand, trying to connect names with faces or images of any kind. Liz, West, the Dragana, nothing. Empty thoughts about my home and my sister just didn't jog my memories like overwhelming fear had. "Leaf, when are you going to the Dragana, and how are you getting—" I froze as a large pair of boots stopped next to the table. A hand lifted the cloth covering, and sunshine from outside momentarily blinded me. All right, whew, that's the end of chapter 1. Hopefully this was fun and enlightening, and yeah, if I can stick to a good recording schedule, these audiobooks will be coming out sometime this year, hopefully. I'd like to do a Kickstarter for like the first 3 all at once, but you know, we'll kind of see what happens. Thanks for tuning in and listening and, you know, being here and being a part of my whole recording experience. I'm glad that I was finally able to show you guys the recording studio because this is a lot of fun and, you know, it's kind of cool to see how it all works. So thank you so much for joining me. Keep an eye out for audiobooks. This is a lot of work to record them and edit them and get them ready and finished and finalized for you guys, but I am really excited to be doing it and I cannot wait to share the finished product with you. So subscribe to my channel if you guys haven't already. Thanks for being here and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!